Newsday continues here on One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. Mount Bulusan in Sorsogon erupted again early in the morning today. To give us an update regarding the situation in the area, FIVOC's Director Undersecretary Renato Solidum is joining us via Zoom. Director Solidum, good morning.
Good morning.
Sir, we'd like to find out, can you give us more details, please, on what happened earlier in Mount Bulusan and what's the latest update about the volcano, sir?
Another phreatic eruption happened at Bulusan at 3:37 in the morning, and this lasted for around 18 minutes. The plume generated would be roughly around 1 kilometer, and the wind was blown towards the north-northwest and slightly a little bit southwest. There were areas or barangays of Uban that experienced ashfall, as well as upper barangays of some parts of Irusin, Kasiguran, and even Barcelona. After the explosion, one can see the voluminous steaming that is happening at the summit of the volcano, and this would be a manifestation of the ongoing hydrothermal activity or the boiling of water at the shallower levels of Bulusan volcano. Hence, we would still expect possible phreatic eruptions as this is a characteristic type of eruption of Bulusan, and we remind people not to enter the 4-kilometer radius permanent danger zone.
Director, prior to this, some of the residents who evacuated in Huban and Irosin started to go back to their respective houses. With what has just happened, are we expecting, you said, more phreatic eruptions, but are they also going to increase in intensity?
Well, at the phreatic eruption level of activity at Bulusan, we think that the 4-kilometer radius permanent danger zone is enough, and hence those beyond it may self-evacuate, or if the LGUs would want to evacuate certain families during the height of ashfall event, if this would be heavy, then they can do so. But then people can get back to these areas once they have cleaned the surrounding. As far as we know, the activity of Bulusan is essentially phreatic, and we have not seen the activity where magma is involved yet.
Director, for our viewers, what would be your reminder, especially for the residents living near around Mount Bulusan?
Well, aside from not entering the 4-kilometer radius permanent danger zone, they have to have their masks ready to wear them in case of ashfall events, and best if they can stay indoors and have their windows and doors closed. For those staying near rivers, because of the ash already deposited on the slopes of the volcano, then they have to be extra cautious and monitor the rivers, especially when there's heavy and prolonged rainfall, because there can be sediment-laden flows or lahars that can affect their houses if this would occur.
Well, thank you, Secretary, for all those information. That's Undersecretary Renato Solidum, Director of FIVOCs. We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has met with UN Resident Coordinator to the Philippines, Gustavo Gonzalez. But it still is unsure whether the president-elect will join the upcoming UN General Assembly in September. Marlene Alcaide with the report.
During UN Resident Coordinator to the Philippines Gustavo Gonzalez's visit to President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr., he said they talked about preparations for the UN General Assembly this September. It is still unsure whether the event will be held online or face-to-face, but previous events were held in the UN headquarters in US.
This UN General Assembly meeting will be the first time that the President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Will be in front of an important numbers of head of state. So this is a great and I think historic opportunity for the President and for the Philippines to share the new vision, the new challenges, but at the same time the new opportunities.
According to U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman, heads of state have diplomatic immunity whatever the circumstances. So the president-elect, who is facing a $353 million contempt case in U.S., can still join the General Assembly. In a text message to the media, incoming Executive Secretary Vic Rodriguez said, the president-elect has said that it is important for the Philippines to have representation in the General Assembly. But so far, it is still unclear whether Marcos will attend. Gonzalez and Marcos also talked about peace and human rights. Gonzalez said there should always be a high level of accountability when it comes to human rights. But when asked if the topic of human rights concerns under the Duterte administration was breached,
No, what we discussed is, as you know, in October 2020, there was a Human Rights Council resolution 4533 that calls for technical cooperation. It means the UN and the government needs to work together in addressing some concerns on the human rights. And he is very much interested, for example, in ensuring a consultation for the nomination of the new Commissioner of Human Rights. This was a topic that he immediately raised, and he mentioned also the importance of ensuring a high level of accountability in terms of the human rights. And we also referred to the October session of the Human Rights Council, where the new administration will be ready for a successful session.
for News 5, Marlene Alcaide, we are One News.
The Commission on Human Rights, or CHR, welcomes the commitment of President-elect Bongbong Marcos to uphold human rights. This comes after President BBM met with United Nations Resident Coordinator in the Philippines, Gustavo Gonzalez. With Marcos Jr.'s promise, CHR is looking forward to the support of his administration for the initiatives that will advance human rights cause in the country. That includes the United Nations Joint Program on Human Rights. Meanwhile, another big-time oil price hike is in the offing. UNIOIL projects that prices of diesel would increase by up to 4 pesos and 50 centavos per liter. Gasoline prices are likewise expected to rise by up to 1 peso and 60 centavos. Global expert noted that the oil industry continued on its turbulent course last week. This as international benchmark Brent crude had been roughly steady at a high of $122 per barrel. On top of another increase in pump prices, Meralco customers can expect an increase in their electricity bill this month. Cheryl De La Peña with a story.
Amid rising prices of basic commodities, Helen decided to hike prices of her merchandise in her small sari-sari store. With electricity bills also increasing, she is now looking for ways to maximize her budget.
Siyempre, imbis na bibili na natin ng pagkain, naidadagdag pa doon. Pagdating sa gabi, hindi na kami nagluluto ng masarap. Nag-equip na lang kami, itlog, sardinas, kung ano lang yung nandyan na.
This June, Meralco will increase rates due to higher power generation costs. The overall power rate will rise by almost 40 centavos per kilowatt hour. Households consuming 200 kilowatt hours will see an 80 peso increase in their electricity bills and up to 199 peso increase for 500 kilowatt hours. Due to the increased demand, the spot market prices remained elevated. Independent power producers and power supply agreements also hiked prices. Meralco explained that this is due to the high prices of oil in the world market. The power distributor added that there is limited supply of natural gas from Malampaya, which is used for the creation of electricity.
If world crude oil prices continue to go up, then we will see an impact on generation costs. In the case of Meralco, about 1/3 to 40% of our supply comes from power plants that use Malampaya natural gas, whose prices are affected by world crude oil prices.
Transmission charges also increased, but Meralco has not imposed additional charges for distribution, supply, and metering since 2015. It is still uncertain if electricity bills will increase in the coming months. With this, they are asking consumers to conserve electricity. For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, we are One News.
And those are the top stories of the hour. Join us later at 12 noon as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play app. Register for a free account now, www.signalplay.com, and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Riza Diaz. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.